Hey, good morning. Ah, the coffee is so good this morning. So, uh, hi Gord, good morning. We were chatting about freedom or lack of freedom, or what does freedom look like, or uh, how do we how do we know if we're living in freedom? Uh, um, how do we get to freedom? and um, to have freedom, to live in freedom, uh, we need to get it to a place where we are prepared, or where we actually surrender, where we say, okay, that's it. I'm screwed. I get it. And what are we surrendering? We're surrendering the management of our lives. I know that sounds like, are you kidding? To who? To what? Well, um, I think that that's ego immediately goes to that question. What do you mean surrender? To who? And and uses that as a defense, because ego doesn't want us to surrender. Ego, our mind says, we got this. You know, I've studied hard. I've read a lot of books. You know, I'm pretty good on the street. I should know how to run my own life. And yet, we bounce from relationship to relationship, and we are dissatisfied often with the results in many, many areas of our life. And and yet we still, plug along trying to get it better. This illusion that we can somehow someday do a better job. The next relationship, I won't I won't be that way, however I was, or I won't get attracted to that kind of a gal. That's right. If I pick a different kind of gal, it'll be different. And so it's all the bullshit of the mind. And so when we get there, when we see that, we're like, oh my gosh. Okay, how do, how do I surrender? You know, and it's just stop and recognize it's not just a one-time thing. It's a we become personally aware. Um, Maslow talked about self-realization, and where we actually become aware that we're living from a limited source when we're living from our our own planning mechanism, our own thoughts, our own ego, and we become self-aware. We're like, oh my gosh, in that form, the small self, I'm unable to actually put much together, you know. And but then we judge ourselves. I was with a fellow that I work with last night sometimes, and and he was saying, well, you can tell if a guy's really got it by what he owns. And I didn't want to say anything, but I think we can tell if a guy really gets it by what he loses. And and if he's, because stuff, security. Hi, Amelia. Oh, honey, sorry I didn't call you back yesterday. What a busy day. Anyway, we'll talk later. Um, what we have isn't it, and what we do isn't it, and who we're with isn't it. Um, and but ego tells us it is. We've been taught that we're judged by our our experiences, and our possessions, and our health, our our persona. So if we really get that we're living a persona, that we're not living in the moment, in our truth, which is, kind of cliche, isn't it? We talk about our truth as if I'm living in my truth, and it's another trick of the mind. Because our truth isn't something we know. Our truth is something that we experience in each moment. It's not something that we have, written down. This is who I am. Because we don't know who we are. We literally do not know who we are. I did a beautiful exercise last fall called the Enlightenment Intensive, and where after 3 days or 3.5 days of asking the question, tell me who you are, it became really obvious that nobody really knows who they are. And then we walk away from that exercise after having an epiphany, like, holy shit, if I'm not all of these things, who am I? And we have this realization that we are one with the whole deal, and we fall back into that. We do this, I like to call it the trust fall, into the moment, into the one, and we're so blessed we can hardly drive, and 2 days later, egos come back and says, yes, that was nice, but that was then, and you can't live like that in the street, and I'll take over from here, right? I'll look after things, and we're like, oh, okay, and it just very subtly creeps back in, like an old relationship. If you've ever had an old relationship, an old girlfriend or an old guy friend, and who, you were done. It was all over, and that person kind of comes back and says, it'll be different this time, and we're like, oh, yeah, maybe, well, ego is like that. Ego is like this old relationship that you said no to, no, and it also in recognizing that our mind is a beautiful instrument. It's we're so blessed to have what we have and the skills that we have and the to be the beautiful instruments that we are. So it's not to say that there isn't beauty in who we are, who we've been, who are even in our persona. There's beauty everywhere. Just to recognize that it doesn't have the depth to run the show. It just doesn't. And so we can't keep going back to it and saying, okay, you take over, when we know that the depth is right here in this relationship that we have with the moment, with God, with love. The depth is right there. So we just surrender into that each moment and slow down. Just slow down. Just relax. Talk less. And breathe. Be in this space. And build this relationship. And it's not like a relationship with the ego and the moment. It's a relationship with who we are, our essence, our soul, our heart, our love, which is not ours. It's we live in it, and we feel it. It's part of. It's who we are. So be that, and recognize that the other is an imposter, and it's very clever. It's very clever, So the beauty of it is that it's not outside of anybody's possibility. It's who we actually are. It's who you actually are. It's not outside of your possibility to surrender. We don't need anything. Nothing is missing. You don't need that guy, right? You don't need that job. You don't need money. We don't need anything. And as we relax into not needing, everything is provided. Everything arrives. It's all arrived to now in spite of us. In spite of us trying to muck with the directions, Hey, park it over here, Just let go of managing. And life will provide in its beauty, I sit in this little backyard, well, it's not that little, but this beautiful backyard every day, and it's just, it's gorgeous. Everywhere we go is beauty if we decide to really be there. So that's the deal. I could go on and on and on. So how do we surrender? In each moment. In each moment. And how do we know that we've done it? Because there's nothing really to do. Just watch ourselves. When ego comes in, be the seer. We see it. Oh, look at that. And we let it go. Oh, look at that. We let it go. Fear comes in. We say, oh, look at that. Maybe a little prayer. God, take away my fear. Show me what you'd have me to be. And that brings us into the moment. Anger comes in. Resentment comes in. We say, God, save me for being angry. Because judgment's there. We let go of the judgment. What do we know? Knowing that we don't know. Because before that, we're thinking. And we're thinking that we know. We're trusting our thinking as the be-all and the end-all. So we just let go of that. Okay, I think it's September 2nd, is it? I think it is. August. I knew it was one of those months. I had the day right.
Close.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Jason. So, I just want to say, I'd like to say one more thing, that ego wants us to muck around in the minutia. Ego says, you have to work on your fears. You have to work on this anger problem, So it wants us to stay in the lower realms, if you will, to do that work. I've been doing the work for a long time. And so we let go. But I was just sharing a few minutes ago that with a friend that Dr. David Hawkins. If you've read Hawkins, Hawkins is beautiful. And he built a scale. He had this beautiful scale. And in the lower realms, there was anger, fear, guilt, and shame, and remorse, and apathy, and all of those and more, desire. And as we moved up into courage and joy and acceptance and unconditional love, his thing was, let's focus on that. Let's focus on living in love, in unconditional love. And how do we do that? In each moment. And we let go of the others. We don't work on the others, we just let go of them. And our natural state is a state of unconditional love, and we move into it. That's our natural state. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to work towards it. We just be there. And just fall into it. So, anyway, I digress. August 2nd, thought for the day. This book, by the way, is written in 1954, and it's geared towards, people in recovery. And the beautiful thing about people in recovery is they come in often quite desperate. Desperation, helps us to kind of get that first step, that our lives are unmanageable, that we cannot run the show no matter what, no matter how learned we become. Many of them, come in and they go, I'm going to go into psychology so that they can figure it out. and then they spend, 20 years in psychology, and they're like, forgive me, it's still not working. What's wrong? Why can't I get this? Well, because it doesn't happen that way. Yeah, it doesn't. So, desperation helps us to see that, and if we're really lucky, we come back into, more desperation, and it's happened to me, and after 40 years and almost 37 or 38 years in recovery, losing everything, to find out that I really hadn't surrendered. I really hadn't. So, so I didn't have to go back out. I didn't have to go back into drugs or alcohol to realize. And so the other thing is that we can move from desperation into inspiration if we're hanging with the right people. And I think we need to keep ourselves in people that are moving in, or living in the now, that are living in love, that have living in love as a high value, is an important piece in their life, and as a reality. So be with those people, and you can do it on YouTube. Actually, you don't have to actually go live with them. I listen to Muji every day, because he's just so got it. He's so got it. I think he's programmed. I really do. So anyway, 54. This is written in 54, and it's a little bit dated. And sometimes I have to rewrite it as we go, because some of it's a little bit, can be sometimes a bit racist. Honestly, I don't think they knew they were. Do you know what I mean? They just didn't know, and it can be sometimes over patriarchal, and so I temper it a little bit. I rewrite it on the fly sometimes. So it says AA has no quarrel with medicine. No quarrel with medicine, or psychiatry, or religion. We have great respects for the methods of each. We are glad for any success they may have had with alcoholics. I'm just kidding. We are desirous always of cooperating with them in every way. It's true. The more doctors, the more psychiatrists, the more ministers or priests we can get to work with us, the better we like it. We have many who take a real interest in our program, and we would like many more. Am I ready to cooperate with those who take a sincere interest in AA? And so I don't actually see this as a sincere interest in AA. Am I willing to cooperate with those who take a sincere interest in awakening? In freedom, in being a jailbreaker, being an ambassador of love. I fancy myself a bit of a jailbreaker, and help, because we're trapped in our minds, and so my job is, I believe, is to be free and help others to get free. Meditation for the day. God said is always ready to pour His blessings into our hearts in generous measure. So when we're here, all of that's available. Mostly we're just not here because we're in here. But like the seed sowing, the ground must be prepared before the seed is dropped in. It is our task to prepare the soil, God's to drop the seed. This preparation of the soil means many days of right living, choosing the right and avoiding the wrong. He focuses a bit on right and wrong. We'll let him off, though. As we go along each day, you're better prepared for God's planting until you reach the time of harvest. Then you share the harvest with life, with God, the harvest of a useful and more abundant life. And prayer for the day, I pray that my way of living may be properly prepared day by day. I pray that I may strive to make myself ready for the harvest which God has planted in my heart. It's fun stuff, I love what he writes, and the metaphor of an external God, we see that as a metaphor, that God is not external. God, Bill said, and we agnostics, God either is or he isn't. Either he's everything or he's nothing. And so if he's everything, he's not separate. It's not separate. That's the mistake that we make often, is looking for God outside of us. Of course, he's everywhere. He's in everything. But so are we. Did you know that even this body is like 90+% empty space? There's no solidness to it. This whole thing is energy. And we feel solid. And as we move up in the scale that I talked about into unconditional love, we actually have a greater sense of our expandedness, of our freedom. And so we, science tells us that all of the cells and they're empty. They're, we're in a way not who we think we are. So God either is or he isn't. Either he's everything or he's nothing. Not separate. Not separate. So just feel into that. Drop into that. Release yourself into that knowingness, that oneness. Okay, you guys. Sometimes I feel like a Sunday morning preacher, but it is Sunday morning. We can have freedom. We really can. We can be free now. Right now. Like right now. It's right here. And it doesn't need to wait for anything. So just breathe. Feel the love. And see you soon. Cheers, you guys. Love you. Bye.